So last week, the entire world watched as Donald Trump delivered a rambling and at times incoherent speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And there was something he said in the speech which is hitting a little different tonight.
It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election.
The speech was insane, and so there were a lot of other things to cover. But again, he said people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. That's probably breaking news. That's what he said. 2 days after that speech, Trump's FBI director, Kash Patel, fired several field officers and senior agents, including the special agent in charge in Atlanta. And those things might not have seemed related at the time, but then this happened. This afternoon, the FBI executed a search at the Fulton County Elections Office near Atlanta. And in response, Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff released this statement. I suspect today's raid is a continuation of this sore loser's crusade, despite repeated audits and independent reviews confirming that Donald Trump was indeed defeated. From Minnesota to Georgia, on display to the whole world is a president spiraling out of control, wielding federal law enforcement as an unaccountable instrument of personal power and revenge. Very well said. Joining me now is Senator Jon Ossoff. So a judge signed a warrant for this search, which according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, included all physical ballots from the 2020 general election in Fulton County, all tabulator tapes from every voting machine, all ballot images during the original count, and all of the voter rolls. That's what we know according to reporting at this point. Why do you think, we all have our theories, but why do you think DOJ is doing this right now? Trump's DOJ is doing this right now?
Jen, thank you for having me. And this is a seismic event. Mm-hmm. This should have people across the country absolutely shook. This is a huge deal. This is an FBI raid on the Fulton County Elections Office. His conspiracy theories about the 2020 election have been based in Georgia from the very start. Georgia is where he called the Secretary of State and said, find me the votes that he needed to win in a state he had lost. So much of the big lie that led to the January 6th sacking of the United States Capitol, that had a mob seeking the Speaker of the House and the Vice President to lynch them, originated in his lies about the state of Georgia. And here he has the FBI, which there are so many hardworking, diligent public servants in FBI field offices all across the country, but its headquarters now in the thrall of these political appointees, Kash Patel and Bongino and this guy from Missouri in the deputy role, who are partisan political actors, raiding this election office in Georgia, seizing all of this information, all of these records, taking it who knows where, chain of custody now broken. And here's the thing. This is a shot across the bow at the midterm elections. He tried to steal power when he lost it in 2020. We have to be prepared for all kinds of schemes and shenanigans. We have to be prepared for him to try to deprive people of their voting rights. In Georgia, where we have the most competitive United States Senate race in the country, and I'm asking people to help me defend this election and voting rights in Georgia, to log on to electjon.com, electjon.com, and contribute to help us fight the good fight and make sure that the people can speak.
Accountability will happen if there's a change in power, unquestionably. I just listed some of what we know. There's not a lot we know right now. We know, but I listed all of the different information we know they took, which, as to your point, is an enormous eye-popping thing people should be very concerned about. Is there anything you know that we don't know about who they're targeting, not that this is legitimate, or about what they're doing with this information? Anything else that hasn't been covered, we haven't covered, or we haven't seen publicly at this point?
No, but I suspect this is, yet again, as we've seen across the country, these power ministries of our federal government, law enforcement agencies, that in a free society, an open society, must be apolitical and disciplined about not getting drawn in to vendettas, to partisan vengeance and partisan efforts. He is wielding the American government as an instrument of personal revenge and personal power in a way completely unprecedented for the American presidency. And this, I think, is a continuation of that.
It's a lot. I feel like we're going to learn more in the coming days. It's such an important story we'll continue to pay close attention to. Well, while I have you here, I mean, in 2 days, there could be a government shutdown, a partial government shutdown. A big battle, which we've been covering a lot, people are paying attention to, is over DHS funding. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but today Minority Leader Chuck Schumer reportedly said that Democrats are united behind 3 reforms: and roving patrols, tightening the rules of on warrants, requiring ICE to coordinate with local authorities, a uniform code of conduct, no mass body cameras on, and agents carry their ID. Do those go far enough? Do you find them adequate? Are you supportive of them? And where do you think, for people watching who are trying to understand what's happening in Washington, where do you think this goes from here over the next 2 days?
Well, based upon what I'm hearing in Georgia, the outrage at the extraordinary misconduct and the lawless chaos we've seen in Minnesota is not just limited to Democrats and people who are already minded to be in opposition to this administration. This is a freedom-loving country. What is in our Bill of Rights? The rights to dissent and assemble and speak against the government, the sanctity of our bodies and homes against search and seizure without a warrant. And so when you have masked federal agents setting up police checkpoints and demanding papers from American citizens, detaining American citizens without cause, kicking down American citizens' doors and raiding their homes and dragging them out into the snow with no warrant from a judge, that makes people upset all across the country of all political persuasions. It's like they are.
Stephen Miller might be out. Not maybe, not speculation. Multiple White House sources are confirming that as of this afternoon, Miller's role in the administration is hanging by a thread. And the reason is absolutely explosive. ICE raids that were supposed to be surgical strikes on dangerous criminals have turned into humanitarian disasters caught on camera. We're talking about families separated at elementary schools, U.S. citizens detained for hours without cause, a grandmother in Texas who died of a heart attack after agents stormed her home looking for her grandson, and the paper trail, the actual documented orders. They're coming from one office, Miller's. The man who has been the architect of Trump's immigration policy since day one, the guy who drafted the Muslim ban, who championed family separation in 2018, who has spent 7 years pulling Trump further right on every immigration issue, he's about to become the fall guy. Because here's what's happening right now in the West Wing. Panic. Absolute panic. Poll numbers are cratering. Republican senators are getting screamed at in town halls. And Trump, according to 3 separate sources, is asking the same question over and over. Who authorized this? Who told them to go into schools? Who signed off on detaining citizens? And every answer points back to Miller. Let's start with what happened this afternoon that triggered this potential firing, because the timeline here is crucial. At 2:47 p.m. Eastern Time, Congressman Joaquin Castro of Texas held an emergency press conference. He didn't schedule it. He didn't send out advance notice. He just walked into the Capitol press room with a stack of documents and started talking. And what he revealed was damning. Castro had obtained internal ICE operational orders dated January 20th, 2026, the day of Trump's inauguration. These weren't leaked. They were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request that had been pending since last year, and they just happened to be released today. The orders explicitly authorize ICE agents to conduct raids in sensitive locations. That's the technical term. Places that were previously off limits. Schools, churches, hospitals, courthouses. And the orders were not signed by the Secretary of Homeland Security. They were not signed by the ICE director. They were signed by a senior White House advisor. The name on the signature line? Stephen Miller. Now you might be thinking, okay, so Miller signed some orders, that's his job, right? But here's why this is a nuclear bomb. Under previous administrations, both Republican and Democrat, there was a policy that ICE agents would not conduct enforcement actions at sensitive locations except in the most extreme circumstances, like an imminent threat to public safety. The reason for this policy wasn't about being soft on immigration. It was practical. If immigrants are afraid to send their kids to school or go to the hospital because they might get arrested, you create public health crises. You create situations where kids stop getting educated. You create communities that go underground and become impossible to police. It's bad policy from every angle: law enforcement, public health, basic human decency. But Miller's orders threw that policy out entirely. The documents Castro revealed show that ICE agents were instructed to prioritize visible enforcement actions in high-traffic locations to maximize deterrent effect. That's a direct quote: maximize deterrent effect. In other words, the cruelty is the point. The goal isn't just to deport people, it's to terrorize entire communities into self-deporting. And the results have been catastrophic. Over the past week, there have been at least 47 documented incidents of ICE raids at schools across the country. In Los Angeles, agents waited outside an elementary school and detained parents during drop-off. In Chicago, agents entered a high school and pulled a 17-year-old out of class. The kid was born in Illinois. He's a U.S. citizen, but he looked Hispanic, and that was enough. In Phoenix, agents raided a church during Sunday services. They detained 11 people, including the pastor, who is also a U.S. citizen. And in Brownsville, Texas, the incident that might be the tipping point, agents stormed a home at 6 a.m. looking for a 32-year-old man with an outstanding deportation order. The man wasn't there, but his 68-year-old grandmother was. She had a heart condition. When agents burst through the door, she collapsed. Paramedics were called, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. Her name was Maria Gonzalez, and her face is now on every front page in America. The public backlash has been swift and bipartisan. And this is where it gets interesting, because Trump's base, the people who elected him on promises of mass deportation, they're starting to fracture. You've got hardcore immigration hawks who are celebrating these raids as finally getting tough on illegal immigration. But you've also got a significant chunk of Trump voters, particularly suburban moms and religious conservatives, who are seeing videos of crying children being separated from their parents at school, and they're horrified. A poll released this morning by Reuters shows that 62% of Americans disapprove of ICE conducting raids at schools and churches. That includes 41% of Republicans. Trump's overall approval rating has dropped to 39%, the lowest it's been since he took office. And Republican senators up for re-election in 2026 are freaking out.